Hey, welcome back to the Cinema 9 podcast. Woo! It's a pleasure to have you here. My name is Michael Govier. I'm along here with Travis Roy, Eric Brandstrom, and we're back to full capacity in terms of the show regulars. Last week, Luke Horbeck stepped in for me. Thanks, Luke, for doing that. The Blood Diner episode, which was delayed in podcast form, but it is now available. I put it out yesterday due to a series of complications. Either way, the video form, which I caught in real time for a few minutes while I was in Arizona, which was great. And we're going to do a classic film from 1998. Or is it a classic? Or is it trash? We'll find out. 1998's SLC Punk with Matthew Lillard. But first, as always, you guys can hit us up on social media. Contact us through cinema9pod at protonmail.com. Travis Roy, how was last week's show and where are we now?
Last week's show went good. It's always a pleasure to have Luke on. He was a good person to be able to, digest some of the political aspects of Blood Diner. I was not expecting maybe.
Classic.
But it was definitely very much appreciated. I'm really having a hard time still not calling it Blood Diamond. Every time I just want to call the movie Blood Diamond. I think I did it a couple times during the show, but it was great having him on, and it's been a week.
It's been a week.
It has been 7 days.
It has been a red dawn. I went to Arizona last week. That was fun, and I hope you guys had a great show together. Eric, when I was listening to the show, me and Leanne put the show on. We were actually driving at the time, but we put the show on in real time on YouTube, which you guys can always watch on YouTube, live in real time, anytime. You can sub our channel, give us a like. That helps the show grow. Of course, 5-star review on Apple Podcasts is another way you can do that. But the entire time we were watching, it was about 5 minutes because we were going to a store. And I didn't hear Eric say a word. Eric, I didn't hear you. Did you talk on last week's episode?
That may have been during the 8-minute long thesis statement on the transgressive nature of schlock cinema as given to us by the great Luke Horbeck. I tried to stay quiet on that one because I didn't have any input. But, I'm back. And if it wasn't for this goddamn Peacock Premium subscription I have now that I can't figure out how to get rid of, I would be feeling pretty good.
I think you hit the star button on your remote or something. I don't know. Can someone walk us through this? Is there any young people that can tell us how the internet works?
How do I cancel all of my streaming services?
I don't have Peacock, so I can't help you. And normally I just go to the website of the play and I go to my account and I try to find the cancel subscription. I wouldn't do it on the actual streaming service and the TV. That would be my best guess.
All right.
That's something I might recommend, but hey, who knows? It was weird. This is my first show I ever missed doing the show, so
that's true.
It was. I'm proud to say that I am now the only podcast host of the Cinema 9 to be on every single episode. I'm real proud of that fact.
That is all yours, buddy. Congratulations.
I own it.
You do. It's all yours, and it was nice to, traveling was going to be a curiosity for me. I haven't flown on a plane since I lived with you, and that was terrifying. Mm-hmm. I actually had to take the bus when I missed my flight. I got off a flight. I was actually on the flight in that time, and I asked the stewardess, oh boy, sorry guys, flight attendant, if I could get off. She said, sure, honey.
Come on,
and she let me get off, so... but I did fly back on that flight in Philly, but I hadn't flown since, and having Leanne there was a big help. Still, if she hadn't been there, I'm pretty sure I would not have gotten on the flight because it was a lot of buildup. But on the flight back, I really did much, much better. I felt I think something happened that day. I have to tell the story because it's so bizarre.
Tell the story. You hopefully saved a man's life, I think.
Yeah, it was fucking nuts. We were trying to go hiking on the Monday after this. I was at a baseball conference. That was the main reason we had gone. Nerd fest galore, 4 days of just baseball nerdery. And on the Monday, we were like, let's go hiking. We're in Arizona. There's some quality hiking here. And we went over to this place that we tried to. My brother recommended Camelback Mountain, which is in the Phoenix area, in Paradise Valley. And we're like 2 blocks from the actual mountain. We're going to pull in and park and do our thing. And all of a sudden, this old woman comes running out with her hands waving like, So we slam on the brakes, and she's to the right of me. I'm driving, and she's coming out of a side street. And she's like, can you please help me? Can you please help me? And Leanne's like, okay, what's happening? And she's like, my husband fell down. And we could look down the side street about 50 yards. This guy's just laying there in the street on the side of the road in the dirt, and he's not moving. And it's like, oh shit, that's intense. So we sprung into action. Leanne helped the woman. The woman was very frantic. She was in her 70s. She was a little bit older, and she was terrified. And I called 911 right away. I don't know if I've ever called 911 like legitimately that I can. I don't recall a time when I called 911 like, hey, I need help, or someone needed help. I don't know if you guys have ever done that either. It's not something you do very often.
How fast were they? I mean, I called them once they showed up. Never. So.
Oh, was this in Philly or somewhere else?
That was in Brighton, Michigan.
Oh. And they were needed?
Yeah, until they weren't anymore, but it didn't matter because they didn't show up.
Wow.
I was witnessing like a fight in the parking lot, but this is your story. You tell your
That's
story.
bizarre.
Yeah.
That seems strange to me.
It was very strange.
But yeah, they showed up in like 4 minutes, so I'll give them credit for that. I talked to a lady for like 4 minutes. They probably got there at 5, and the lady was telling us, "Hey, what's he doing?" It was standard procedure, and the guy was like bleeding out of his mouth and ears, but he hadn't hit his head. I thought he hit his head initially, and that's why we were trying to apply pressure to a wound that didn't exist. And anyways, everybody showed up. They took the guy away, and we drove this lady to her house. And then Leanne drove her car. We don't know this woman at all. And they followed me to the hospital. And then we left her there, hopefully. And we got an update yesterday. The guy actually went home. And it turns out he had a massive seizure, but was unclear why. But he was okay enough to go home. So
did you have...
they said that the fact that he got oxygen so quickly from the paramedics may have been a big help. So if that's a good thing, that's great.
That is a good thing. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's great.
Did you have a chance to ask the guy after he recovered from his crisis if he'd give us a 5-star review on the podcast?
That's even better. I was thinking like, hey, maybe they'll put us in their will, Leanne, because these people were well off. I mean, they were they had a Mercedes Benz that was brand new, and they're living in an area that is very ritzy, and like it was really nice. So, but I don't think we'll get any benefits, and we're fine with that, Eric. We're set to just
come on, man, monetize your empathy.
Yeah. I know, God damn it, it wouldn't hurt. I'll tell you that. But I will tell you this: so for some reason, that was the day we flew out. I think it kind of just put me at ease. I am not bragging here, but I just I don't freak out in those situations. I somehow handled it like, okay, this is happening now, and and Leanne had mentioned how calm and cool I was. I'm like, I don't know, maybe I should be in some type of service like that, because not everybody wants to be a part of experiences like that. But it did help me fly home. I feel like, hey, I should appreciate the time we have. Every moment's sounds cheesy, sounds lame, but every moment we have is kind of a bonus. You never know when something will happen like that. So,
are there any dispensable moments? I feel like there's some dispensable moments.
Of course there are. There's plenty of dispensable moments.
In
terms of me thinking about like, oh my God, the plane I am on is going to go down, it's a little bit ego driven and unnecessary. So,
especially when you're driving around in a car all the time. I mean, like,
Exactly.
way more dangerous. I almost died like 10 times just getting to work and back today.
Yeah, it's stupid. I know that. It's just irrational fears. Like I said, as Eric knows, I've told you guys several times in the show, watched La Bamba way too many times growing up, and then I didn't fly until I was 27, so the fear built up. So, yeah. Anyways, overall, good trip, beautiful weather. It was weird. I don't like the warm weather. Travis knows that about me. But we made the best of it. We were indoors a lot. And as far as COVID, everything was fine. We flew on 2 flights. Everybody wore masks on both flights. There was no issues there. And everybody who came to that conference had to show proof not only of a vaccination, but of a recent COVID test in the 72 hours. So we all felt pretty confident. They took it very seriously. And I don't know, everything went well. So from COVID's point of view and travel and stuff, I was surprised. And it kind of gave me a little bit of confidence.
Nobody screamed at or smacked any of the flight attendants? That's weird.
I didn't see that. Although, these planes are long, and who knows? We could have been way up front. Somebody might have had a spat. But
the smacking was in the back cabin.
Yeah. Either way, it was cool, and it's good to be home. Glad to be live. And now we're 2 weeks today from the feast, which now we got something to look forward to. Very excited about that. Which means not a thing to certain people. I have no idea what that is, but to us, it's a gathering we do every year that most years that we try to do, and it's a lot of fun. So hopefully it'll go well.
Looking forward to it.
Let's get into quarantine viewing picks. Travis Roy, I don't know what you guys watched last week, so I'm really excited to find out what you watched this past week.
Okay, I watched a few films. I revisited 1990s Dances with Wolves with one of my students, with one of my classes, I should say. And it's become real trendy to just shit all over this movie lately. I gotta say, man, this movie's still really fucking good.
Wow,
I agree. Thank you.
It is still really fucking good. It is. I mean, for 1990, there is a lot of attention being paid to there's some cultural sensitivity here. There is a good story. I mean, this is a fucking good movie, man. I don't know.
From what I gather, Costner and the crew, they really tried to go other way to make it more of an authentic experience for the natives and speaking the language and trying to learn some of the language. Now, it might not have been. Is there something about the language and the actual tribe that it would have been? There might have been a misrepresentation there, but I think that's a lesser point that we should be harping on. I'm glad you agree with that, because I agree too. I watched it a couple years ago and I'm like, this movie it's pretty solid.
Yeah, and I mean, Costner, I wish he directed more. He did a fine job with that movie. I don't know why he didn't do more.
Kevin Reynolds will be around. Who knows?
Yeah, I think the Postman kind of shut him down. That was the end of the road for him directing.
I've never seen that trash.
AMC is doing this thing where it's like, I forget what it's called, like the Thrills and Chills or whatever. But like basically, like they're showing horror movies, and you don't know what movie is playing until it comes on. So
fun.
Myself and friend of the show, Steve Laskowski, went, and I'm thinking, oh man, maybe it's gonna be fucking like Halloween or something like that, something ancient. And it was fucking Us from 2019, which I hadn't seen since I saw it in theaters. But I liked it both times. But now I'm like, okay, well, I was hoping for something like an experience. You know what I mean? But Us is a good movie, so I was not disappointed to watch Us. Everyone's talking about Squid Game. I watched Squid Game and I liked Squid Game. Solid.
Is it a show?
Yeah, it's a TV show on Netflix. Solid filmmaking. Really, really, just these people fucking hate capitalism. That's some of the best representations of the flaws of capitalism that I think I've seen in film. Like Squid Game is, the buzz is there for a reason. It's worth seeing. I watched The Changeling, which I hadn't seen in a long time, from 1980.
Yes.
Love me some George C. Scott, and that movie holds up really well.
Not Angelina Jolie's movie.
No, I've never seen that one. I'm talking about the horror film from 1980. A nice like horror drama from 1980. Still pretty damn good movie. I actually happened to accidentally watch it on what would have been George C. Scott's birthday, so that was kind of fun.
Cool.
Revisited a movie that you had suggested to me, Eric, once, that I had not revisited since, but really enjoyed, The Innkeepers. It's fucking such a fun movie from 2011. Really quality. And it's funny that I didn't really like, is it T West or Ty West? I'm never really
Ty West.
I'm not really a huge fan of his House of the Devil, because I felt like so much of it was just like dragging, and I'm like waiting for something to happen. But it's funny because it was a very similar format being followed with Innkeepers that works perfectly for me. So I don't know why, but
yeah, you see, I love House of the Devil, but I was not big on Innkeepers.
That's funny, to
be honest with you. And out of the two, his third film, In a Valley of Violence, is by far his best. The Western with Ethan Hawke and John Travolta is fucking awesome.
Yeah, I've been meaning to catch that. I watched a film from Ben Wheatley, who did Sightseers, which I really liked, and he did this film called In the Earth. Man, like just a movie that's so dull that you lose the plot. Like that's not a good movie, which is too bad because it started off pretty well, and it's got Joel Fry, who I like, who's been doing a lot lately, but nothing really to get excited about there. Last but not least, besides SLC Punk, I watched Halloween Kills. I upgraded my Peacock subscription. And Eric, I know you hated this movie. I have to tell you, I really enjoyed Halloween Kills, man. I thought Halloween Kills was a lot of fun. I liked that it's about echoes. I like that it's about Haddonfield. I like that it was a lot of the things that I kind of like wondered, why has this not happened yet in the franchise happened? I like that there's a lot of references to the other films, and I really like that more than anything. This is Michael's movie, and I really like that. I can see what some people didn't like about it. I'm looking forward to hearing your remarks on it, but it's a divisive movie. Some people are really hating it, some people are liking it, but put me strongly in the like it camp. I thought Halloween Kills was good. And that's what I watched.
Wow. Oh boy, controversial opinion.
No.
By the way, Travis, I hope you're feeling better. I know last week you were recovering from a terrible sickness.
I'm still not fully recovered, man. I'm like got a sore throat and runny nose still. It's been like 2 weeks or more. It's insane.
I feel really grateful that before I left, I happened to go to the doctor the Friday before, and they like, "Yeah, you want the flu shot?" I was like, "Sure, why not?"
I got that. It didn't do me much good.
No, but did you say it was like it was close to?
Yeah, it was close. But my father's gotten COVID and gotten over COVID since I got sick. That's how long I've been sick now.
Well,
I'm very happy that I'm very grateful and happy that he's doing well. That's the main thing.
Yeah, for sure.
That's
I've been popping those airborne things like Tic Tacs.
Oh
like
my God.
You might as well hang a fucking horseshoe above your door.
It's vitamin C. I mean,
it's so stupid. It's so stupid. I lived it. In my 20s, I lived that shit. I used to take the airborne and echinacea. I mean, I just did it all. It doesn't do dick. It's so stupid. But hey, if it gives you the placebo effect, then great. Who cares?
Okay.
Do you feel judged?
Beyond me.
Jason Vivian is the master of airborne. He he swears by it.
He used to be really big on airborne back in the day too.
Oh, really, Luke? Yeah. Okay.
Luke and I both. I imbibed, but
like
came around to your way of thinking.
Wait a second. I'm sick not because I didn't take airborne, but because people get sick. Like what is this new?
Hello.
What?
Oh, sorry, my shit's going on. Anyway, on to Halloween Kills. Fucking hated it. I was pissed the entire runtime, and I had to get this Peacock prescription. I don't know how to get rid of it now.
You mentioned.
Okay, David Gordon Green in 2018, he brings Halloween back, and he does some interesting things, and he revitalized the franchise in a way that I thought was pretty solid. And then for his sequel, he basically just makes like Halloween 7 as if it came out like in the mid-90s, like your standard issue, like dumb slasher movie. And I thought he devolved as far as his input in this franchise goes. When I watch these types of movies, I want all the people to die, and yet in these new ones, he's like making me like to like really care about every single character in like town. I just don't go for slasher movies for that reason. It's just, it wasn't hitting me at all on any of its on anything. I just detested it.
I actually saw the 2018 version in the theater, which is a rarity for me. And that if Aaron's watching, Aaron watches the show a lot of the time, but that was the episode where Aaron was rip roaring drunk, and we saw it on Halloween night in 2018.
Yeah,
it was actually interesting. I'm actually mildly curious. Maybe I'll watch this one because I did see that one.
That one wasn't bad, but if you're a Jamie Lee Curtis fan and you're hyped up for this movie, be prepared to watch her sitting in a hospital bed saying like basically the same line over and over again. Like, hey, remember 40 years ago? Yeah, that night. Yeah, evil lives. Like,
dude, you didn't even like that first 15 minutes, that opening. I thought that opening was fucking great.
What I liked was when he was taking out all those firefighters. Like that 5 minutes was fucking awesome. The rest I just thought was not up to par. And Michael Myers was acting more like Jason than Michael. It's just, I don't know. Maybe I'm too deep into the old mythos or something.
I mean, that's what I liked. That's what I liked about it. I felt like it plugged into, like, you could be a direct sequel to the actual 1978 film. I felt like it could literally be a direct sequel to that. It could be a direct sequel to the 2018 film, it brought in stuff from Halloween 2 and Halloween 3. It brought in all this other Halloween stuff. I mean, I feel like it's one of the strongest installments in the series.
Okay, I'm glad you enjoy. I honestly am glad you liked it, man. I want people to have fun with their horror. I followed it up with Prom Night, Jamie Lee Curtis's 1980 horror slasher. Love Prom Night. If you haven't seen it, like,
I've never seen it.
Don't trash it. Like, it's a worthy entry in the slasher series. It's a lot of fun with a really interesting story.
You gotta watch it.
I dug it. I did not like Waxwork from 1988. It was so stupid. Remember this? Like Zach Galligan, the dude from Gremlins, like,
I've heard of it.
He goes into this museum and like all these fuckers come to life, and like it's really, really dumb. Like the climax is literally him like fencing with the Marquis de Sade because like he steps into like that dumb like diorama of him with it. Really dumb. And I don't know how they made a sequel, but it's horrible. Yeah, Waxwork, not good. The Wraith. You ever see this movie, The Wraith from 1986 with Charlie Sheen?
I'm aware of it. How was it?
Okay. In the first 5 minutes, you have like this mysterious black car and its driver created literally by a swarm of comets. And like in the next scene, some asshole is forced into a drag race by a gang of brake fuel guzzling rapists. And this is like in the first 5 minutes. Like the entire movie is fucking bonkers. Randy Quaid, Nick Cassavetes. Like, I mean, it's atrocious, but I sat there and watched the whole thing. So it's kind of that, blood diner effect. Like I'm entertained, but I'm like, what the fuck is this? How is this a movie?
Like a late night watch, sounds like.
Yeah. Lastly, Fake Blood is like this pseudo documentary from a few years ago about these two horror filmmakers who set out to examine the realistic effects of violence in film. I thought it was a solid like study on the responsibility that filmmakers have to portray the extent of violence we tend to see in like blockbuster mainstream movies. I dug it. It's streaming free on Tubi. With any like millennial filmmaker, there's like a slight touch of douchiness, but like I think there's some really good arguments to be made about the responsibility of filmmakers when it comes to portraying this level of horror and terror. But yeah, I dug it.
All right.
Hey, all righty. How about that? Good times, noodle salad here on the Cinema 9 podcast. As far as what I watched, I was on the move, but there was time to watch movies. But I was also watching movies with Leanne that she had never seen before that I had already seen. So some repeats.
Such as?
Well, I wanted to show her Blind Spotting, so I showed her that.
Okay.
And, so I just talked about that. The Great Outdoors. She never saw The Great Outdoors, so I had to show her that.
Lips
that
and assholes. She'd never seen that?
Yeah! She said she hadn't, so... I thought it was funny. I always think it's funny. Still hilarious every time I watch it. It'll never get old.
66 times.
Oh my!
Yeah, we can get that grizzled down. If you think you can throw in a couple of hats and a t-shirt, yeah, it's fun. And then that weird dance sequence at the end. It's always great though. It's kind of weird.
Yeah,
like when you watch it now, it's fun, but it's like, why is this here? It's weird. It's like the 80s. It's just a different time in the world. It's like, hey, the movie's over. We all know it's over. Let's have some fun.
Yeah, it's like Roman wouldn't do that like as the character, but you can tell it's just like Dan Aykroyd fucking around having fun on the set.
That's all it is. He's like just trying to dance with every girl there. It's stupid, and he's making these dumb faces. It's funny. I never watched this movie, so we watched together A Thin Line Between Love and Hate. Have you guys ever seen this?
Can't say that I have.
It's a movie title that makes you think you've seen it, I feel like, oh, yeah, that movie. But it's weird. This is a bizarre movie starring Martin Lawrence and directed by Martin Lawrence. And this is 96. This movie is not what you might think it is. It gets really fucking dark and like, it's like, whoa, shit goes crazy. It's comedy. It's rated R, but it's also like a suspense movie in a sense where the guy's a player and maybe he goes too far, messes with the wrong woman type thing.
Oh, no.
Yep. It's really, really interesting. What's her face? Is it Lynn Whitaker? Is that her name?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
I'm pretty sure that's her name.
Yeah, she's great in this movie. Very intense. So I'll give her credit for that. I'd recommend checking it out. It was not what I expected at all, so it kind of threw me for a loop. But
never even heard of it. I'm interested.
I know.
I remember it back in the day, but never saw it.
This is Martin Lawrence has got Martin on the air, and he gets a chance to just do whatever he wants, and he does whatever he wants with this movie. So I respect that in a sense. I'll give him credit for that. And other than that, a few others I'd seen before that I showed Leanne, like Hot Tub Time Machine, and I showed her Pig too. She watched Pig with me.
What'd she think?
She liked it. She thought it was gonna be like some weird ass movie with the title and stuff. I'm like, no, it's not, because she hates scary movies because she's like genuinely terrified. She just can't handle it. So I'm like, no, it's not a scary movie. It's okay. Don't worry. And she liked it, so that was cool. I was glad she enjoyed it.
Good.
And before we flew out, we watched Flight together, and she's like, "Why are we watching this?"
Like, didn't you just see
again?
it?
I mean, this is the third time this year, at least.
Right. Yeah, I don't know why I put it on.
Man. It's good,
but it's a good movie, and it was a stupid decision, obviously. But I like to put myself into those situations because that situation is very unlikely to happen, anyways.
True.
But,
you got a point.
That was it. That was pretty much it. It was didn't get a chance to watch a ton of fresh movies, so we'll see what I can come up with next week.
We'll see.
We will see. No emails this week, so we're clear on that front. So I believe that leads us into what they call the main course. Time to dive into 1998's SLC Punk, also known as Salt Lake City Punk, for those of you that don't know what the SLC stands for. I think this is a movie starring Matthew Lillard and that other guy who plays Heroin Bob. I don't know his name off the top of my head. Some other names you might know from this movie. Jason Segel's in this film.
I had zero recollection of that. Just zero recollection. Like, holy shit, that is Jason Segel. Like, I saw his name in the credits. I'm like, is it going to be the Jason Segel?
There he
was. Yeah. And Till Schweiger, too. I'd forgotten that Till Schweiger was in it.
Schweiger.
Yeah.
Till Schweiger, known to many Americans as, what's his fucking name?
And
what is his name?
What's his name?
Striker? Crazy ass name.
Striker? What's his name? Whatever, from Inglourious.
Yeah, we all know what we're talking about.
I can't remember.
I can't remember his name.
Oh, Hugo Stiglitz.
Hugo Stiglitz.
Yeah, we've all heard of Hugo Stiglitz. So, so that's where you would know him from if you don't know him that well. But he's also a very famous German movie star for a long time.
Fucking great actor.
So, Travis, did you ever see this movie before? And if so, do you recall when?
I sure as shit don't remember the first time I watched it, but I know, again, this is one of those movies that I had the poster on my wall. I own the box copy. I very much internalized this movie when it came out. It was 1998 when it came out. Like, I was in the full throes of my punk rockness, and there's only so many punk rock movies. It was like this or Glory Days, which I swear, wasn't there a van in Glory Days that said anti-disestablishmentarianism along the side in that too? Or was I just getting them both mixed up in my head, maybe? But there was a limit of how many fucking punk rock, like genuine punk rock movies there were from that era. I watched the shit out of this movie, and then I had not watched it since, I don't know, 2001, 2002.
Okay, that's good. I actually didn't know how often you'd seen it or what it was any value to you growing up, because I just don't remember us having a ton of conversations about it. That doesn't mean we didn't, but I also didn't. Anyways, I'll get to that. Eric, what about you? Had you ever seen this movie before, or is this your first viewing?
I'd never seen the film. I used to stock this on the shelves of Blockbuster Video every day, and I'd sit there and look at the cover box. I remember that green cover box, Matthew Lillard's spiky blue hair. And I'd always be like, what is this? What is SLC? But I never bothered to rent it. And like every day kids would come in asking for it, and it would always be out. And yet I never bothered to watch it. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, it's probably one of those movies I suggested to you. You're like, I'll give it a couple decades, let it marinate.
I can't believe you didn't watch it. It's got Devon Sawa in it, so I thought you'd be all over it.
You figured that would be the selling point, but no. Yeah. I watched Idle Hands a bunch, but I missed out on SLC Punk.
Shit. I didn't see, as far as I recall, my recollection is I watched this movie, I think with Janicek, because Janicek loved this movie, a friend of ours, Steve Janicek. When I lived with him in 2002, so I hadn't seen it until then, and then I really became a big fan of it after that point. And it's a movie that I've watched, I don't know, many times over the years. I watch this movie every year, so it's something I'd like to go to. I find it comforting in a sense, in a strange way.
You've stayed up with it. You've watched it regularly since 2002.
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Yeah, so I will reveal that. So I definitely. I know the lingo of the movie. It's very familiar to me. All this is not like, oh wow, it's been forever. But when you asked me, and I was like, oh shit, I gotta pick a movie, and I had my list on my phone, so I just went to what was at the top of the list, and this was the movie I chose. So
well thought out.
Well, I thought it had prior thought into it. The list did. So I just didn't know what other people's experience was with it, but we'll find out more.
Christ,
about it,
I think it's an awesome pick. Like when I did hop online to check a few things out. This has a fucking huge fan base.
Oh, yeah. It was a cult film.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Unfortunately, led to a sequel that is just god awful. Did you watch it, Travis?
There's some sequels that like I could just tell going in. I'm like, no, thank you, Boondock Saints 2. No, thank you.
I saw that in the theater. I did go there for that one. I was actually excited about that. I thought there was a lot of places they could go with that, but No, that wasn't great either.
You're pretty. Sometimes I'm just like, no fucking way is this going to be good. And I hear that I'm correct that it wasn't any fucking good.
Oh, dude, you didn't see Backdraft 2? Come on, you better
skip that one. Although part of me is really curious, like in a talking cat kind of way. Like, is it as bad as the film A Talking Cat? I'm curious.
Talking Cat. There it is. Grilled Cheese the movie. All right. So on IMDb, I've known the score because I've looked it up over the years, so I know what it is. Did anyone else look it up or?
Didn't look.
Sadly, I caught it.
Sadly,
Travis, give us your best guess.
So this isn't. It's not a fucking masterpiece, but there is a cult following for this film. I'm going to put this in the high sixes. I'm going to say 6.6.
Huh.
7.4.
7.4.
Just like Jacob's Ladder. It's right there. 7.5 for Jacob's Ladder. So
wow. All right. Okay. That is definitely higher than I would have guessed. But again, the people that like it, love it. This is a beloved film. I remember it being a beloved film. At the same time, I felt like it was a good call for the podcast because it's one that I really don't feel like I hear people mention or bring up in conversation for many years. Well, there was a good stint of my life where I did.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good news then. On Rotten Tomatoes, this is wild. 89% from the audience. Very, very high.
Okay.
Tomatoes from the critics is just fresh at 63. A massive gap. Big gap there. So,
Bit of a gap.
I could see, and I think we'll find out what the critics have to say here because we're going to do that right now. But I can imagine what some of them have to say, such as Goody
Coons. Desson.
Give me back my Goody Coons. Boy,
I may have been too early for Desson.
Roger Ebert said,
all right.
Matthew Lillard's performance dominates the film, and he does a subtle, tricky job of being both an obnoxious punk and a kid in search of his direction in life. He's very good. High praise from Roger Ebert.
Yeah,
I agree, but subtlety is not something I would attach to this performance. Is he talking about in terms of him hiding his, doing his grandstanding and hiding his insecurities?
I think that's what he's talking about. The subtlety isn't the performance itself. I think the subtlety is the vulnerabilities behind all the grandstanding.
Okay, yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. This is a record low as far as I can tell. There's only 1.5 pages of reviews. So there's no Goody Coons, no Desmond Thompson, sorry to say. So we're going to have to go to Philip Martin of the Arkansas Democrat Gazette.
All right.
One of those movies is a lot more fun to watch than it is to think or write about.
He did not like having to write about it, clearly. Someone didn't like the deadline.
Yeah, no shit. That hurts. Andrea Chase of Killer Movie Reviews says the script's deficiencies are balanced by a surprisingly mature performance by Lillard, who is obviously capable of better roles than he's been offered.
Probably still true.
Yeah, once again, Lillard's getting praise. Here's a shitty one from David Luty of Film Journal International. We all love the journal, the International. SLC Punk cannot quite reach the richer depths it grasps for because it doesn't have the material to support the large dramatic distance Steve-O has to travel.
Okay, that's interesting. When he says that review brings to mind the scene, there's two scenes where I'm not sure which classical musical artist this is. I know some of these people, but not many classic. I know a lot about classical music, but it's the music goes. Oh
my God! Don't we all do that?
Yeah, right. Anyways, it's like the same big sweeping score, probably Mozart or Beethoven, and it's so out of place in the film both times when it comes, and one of the times it comes, it's like this sweeping shot over the ice in their van, and they're outside the van, and it's extremely dramatic, and I'm just like, where is this coming from? This is I don't know. There's moments where I'm like, they're really reaching here, and I'm not sure that I'm on board. I'm guessing that's what he's talking about.
What about the weird intro music when the movie starts, like the 90s bozo comedy intro? as they're about to beat on two rednecks who have to get some pelt tonight. By the way, which is just
getting introduced to characters who beat strangers with metal poles is like, all right, these are our heroes.
Yeah, well, I mean, the movie goes into great detail too. I mean, this movie is bizarre in a way because it has the fourth wall is just ripped apart in this movie. Forget about it. The essay about fighting just shows up in the middle of the film all of a sudden with the projector / kind of overhead projector feel to it where you're like, what? Why? I don't need this. Why is this here?
Steve-O literally introduces characters to us that we've already come to know like a half hour through the movie. I dig that about it. It just makes it more interesting for me.
Huh. Well, I don't have a beef with that so much, like the party scene where he goes around doing the introduction.
I like the introduction,
and then it goes off into tangents. Yeah,
he does kind of reference people like you kind of feel like maybe this was going to be earlier in the film. Like you kind of get the sense that the editing may have swapped out some.
Yeah, I'd be interested to look at the script to see how linear it is. Maybe he wanted to make it a little more interesting by making it a little jumbled.
Maybe that is definitely the word.
Jumbled is a great word for this movie. Massive amount of narration. Anybody have beef with the too much narration in this movie, or is because I think narration has its place if it works. It's his story to tell. He's definitely the focal point. So, well,
I was just singing the praises of Dances with Wolves, but I cannot imagine a worse overall narrative talking like this the whole time. So that's dull as fuck, and that's like no movie is improved by that. Like, I'd rather be wondering what the fuck is going on than having that kind of voiceover. But what Lillard's doing as Steve-O is so interactive. It's so Deadpoolian. It's so like, I mean, like it's the movie. Frankly, I don't know if the movie would work without that kind of interaction with us as being in the audience. Like if it was just like you were all looking at him from the side and shit, and he's not addressing us, the movie would be grossly different.
It's so true. And they do the wonderful thing that great voiceover movies do,
which is
Lillard. Steve-O doesn't just explain what's happening. All of his narration is just as interesting as the solely visual stuff that the movie shows us. So there's a great balance between the two. Like I'm looking at the most notes by far I've ever taken for one of our Does It Hold Up films. And I think this is going to have to be one of the rare occasions that, because I'd never seen the film, that I have to show my cards a little early. I think it'll improve my overall review of it. I fucking loved this movie so much. I was blown away. I haven't been this blown away since I watched Heaven's Gate last summer. I like went outside and I was like ruminating for like 40 minutes. Like I cannot believe this is not more like well-known and applauded and revered for what it was. Like maybe it's just because I've seen it now as 41. Maybe that makes a huge difference on if you saw it like when you were a kid. But I'm telling you right now, I think this is fucking amazing.
Yeah, I mean, wow. I'm glad you liked it. I definitely there were a great many people singing its praises, but that chorus has fallen off. That's true.
That is just stunning, Eric. I really thought that you would be like ripping on this movie. That was my expectation.
Yeah. If I would have saw this like when I was 20, I'd be like, oh, these motherfuckers, this is not like this is not potent enough for the level of like sagacity I'm trying to achieve here in my bullshit early 20s. I'd probably write it off. But I think that makes a huge difference seeing it for the first time as someone who's grown up, kind of lived through their shit, whatever that is, such as it is. But oh my God, I loved it so much.
Okay. Wow. Well, hey, Miles V's watching. He commented and said, just watched for the first time and love this film as well. So a second first-time watcher like you, Eric. Also, this movie. So let's have it. Give it to us. What is it that you like about this movie? What is it that struck you? Go ahead. Give it to us.
Oh, my God. Well, I was struck by the fact that Jan de Bont of Speed and Twister fame produced it. Like that's kind of interesting to me. Mm-hmm. And this guy James Marandino, he makes a film that for me is not only visually but narratively twice as interesting and compelling to me than something like Danny Boyle's Trainspotting, which got all the trophies dumped on its lawn. And this is like a third time film. He's got like Witchcraft 3 and 4 under his belt. And then he comes out with this as like a 28, 29-year-old filmmaker. So I was taken immediately with the way he was telling me this story. I can't imagine seeing this in 1998 because it was just so fresh. If it would have came out this year, I would be like, this movie's fucking amazing. To me, it's not very dated at all. It may be different for you.
That's funny to me. Yeah, because to me, since I watched the fuck out of it in 1998 through like 2003 or whatever, it feels very, very dated to me.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah, because I mean, again, like it was when I internalized at a very like crucial time period in my life. I'm like, this movie speaks for me and to me. But since it was so like it was like I consider like it was part of my personality for a minute, like in the way that like some of these other movies we've addressed have been. So like to go back and now and watch it makes me feel like I'm 21, which is not by any stretch a bad thing, but it feels like dated.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of Ronnie Reagan references, and it's based in the 80s.
Really?
There's the fast, greasy ass Christopher McDonald as the dad. By the way, is fucking great in this movie. He's so minimal, but when he's on every time, I'm just like, I want more of this guy. I want more of the interaction between the son and the father. These slick ass assholes.
I love that they actually get along. That there's actually like a loving support in the divorced family.
Yes. Good call, Travis. That's a great call.
That's such a great call.
When they have the debate about the Volkswagen and the Nazi stuff, but then then they come to terms, hey, let me take you lunch. Okay, cool. Yeah.
And he kind of like he resents his father, but at the same time, like he knows his father is just like a person. And
they get each other and they want each other to be happy, like regardless. There's not this typical bullshit relationship you see in every other goddamn coming of age story.
I do have one interesting point though about the father-son thing, which either there's some like narrative sloppiness going on, or Christopher McDonald had him when he was like 15, 16 years old, because he talks about going to fucking Woodstock when he was in Harvard. But Matthew Lillard's character, Steve-O, it says twice was born in 1963. So it's like, well...
Oh, they said that? I didn't catch that with the exact date.
Well, for one, they tell us that it's 1981 in that flashback, and he says, I'm 18 years old there, so do the math. And then later on, they do the speed up thing on his driver's license when he's going to Montana or Wyoming, whichever it was. And I looked, and it says 1963. Because... So his father was a teenage father.
And somehow was able to go to Harvard. Very common tale. A very common tale, I'm sure.
Everyone.
Follow-up from Miles, first-time viewer as well. I'm 25, so he's younger. And I've been looking for good cult movies the past few years, and only a few felt as original and raw as this one. Still trying to wrap my head around the impact it had on me. So,
holy shit, Miles.
First-time viewer. Another first-time viewer response. Interesting.
Now, Eric, you're loving this movie, and you're definitely not a 25-year-old, but that like I do feel like this is a movie for like young people. Like I do. Like I feel like this is very much about like not like young people like 13, but like early 20s. Like it is kind of early mid 20s. Like it's kind of geared towards people that are starting to get sick of the party life.
Yeah, you're right, and yet it works in a way that I can still enjoy. It reminded me of like American Graffiti, wherein you can both enjoy like these circumstances that these kids are going through, but you can also think back at when you were a teenager and just relive some of that fun. And watching something like this, man, it felt like I was at like a really fun like party where I was having, like emotionally engaging conversation, and yet like a really fucking good. It was so like. Were
you Eddie? Is that who you were? The romantic?
Possibly. I might have been that weird guy that Jason Segel played. And I remember those dudes that I don't want to name any names, but the guy that was like nerdy, but like he was like crazier than everyone. Like I know that fucking guy. I loved it. I thought
you can't be Jason Segel's character. He's way too violent. That's not you at all.
I would never hit anybody. But I know that guy.
That hits at one of the things I like about the movie quite a bit, which is that I there's quite a few characters. I'm like, I know that person. I know that drug dealer who needs to show me evering and try and pretend that we're friends. I know that guy. He is lonely. Like
Tony Smith.
No names. I'm not throwing around names.
Yeah.
Tony's fine with that.
I wasn't even thinking of him, but I have known. there are people in this film that they feel archetypal,
Yeah.
James Arandino
typical.
definitely lived a life. He is very authentic in the writing and the direction and the whole creation of this film. It's someone who had to experience a lot of this stuff to know what it was about. But there's so many other angles with this movie. The political and philosophical debates, when he goes over to Chris's house and loves to engage in these anarchy debates, and his whole internal struggle, him and Bob are supposed to be about anarchy, and they're supposed to, everything about it is a contradiction, which is great because that's what these people do. And the fact that the movie ends with him admitting it, hey, I already know you're thinking it. That's a great, this was a great ending. This is a really great ending in a film. You're already thinking I'm a poser. Fuck you. Yeah, I was. Fuck it. That's so good.
I mean, when he says at one point, basically like, we didn't know what to do, so we went to college because that's anarchy. I'm like, what the fuck are you? What are you selling yourself here, buddy? Like,
I think he says that they were intentionally wasting their educated minds, which I
but he got amazing grades. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Well, he's clearly like, if I were to, oh man, I really don't have much negative to say about it, but like some of the arguments and discourse he gets into seem a little juvenile for the type of education he probably had, but it doesn't bother me. He might have even been doing it on purpose to seem more like slackerish or whatever.
There's also a narrative issue for me when he's talking to his parents in the 81 flashback, where he's pissed that they left New York City, the cultural mecca, to go to Utah. Well, you're 18 and graduate high school. You go where the fuck you want, dude. You could have gone right back out there. So
also, it had been years because he was like it had to have been at least 4 or 5 years since they'd moved there, because he was playing Dungeons and Dragons with thanks, Miles. He was playing Dungeons and Dragons with Bob and Miles,
Mike and Eddie,
Mike and Eddie. So yeah, there is a few kind of moments like that where I feel like maybe not enough attention was being paid to some of the script, especially since there is no real narrative here. It's hard to follow the chronology of the film a lot of times, because you're like, what, is Bob in the hospital or is he not in the hospital? Is this a flashback or what's happening here? Like what's happening? There's a lot of bouncing around, which sometimes I think really works, and sometimes I think is like, what the fuck is going on? Like, where's the story?
when he's doing the party introductions and he comes around to Mark, played by Til Schweiger, and then it goes into this long, I mean, we're talking like 15 minutes worth of the story. Not just a story, it's this very dramatic and serious engagement that they have in the kitchen with the gun. Like you said, he kicked his father's corpse, which is...
And the world's longest pistol.
Yeah, beyond Dirty Harry with that super magnum gun. And then the fact that he's this guy who's got this mysterious story. And there are people like that. Yeah, he's not a pusher. He had money, but he came into their lives. And why else would he be in Salt Lake City? I mean, Til Schweiger is one of the best parts of this movie. Every time he's on the screen, he's killing it. He makes me laugh, makes me think too. Mm-hmm. And the shit he says in the car when they steal the car and he goes off on all these bozo conspiracy
I saw a
theories.
half man and half dolphin.
The world has no way to clean itself. It makes me laugh every time I hear that line.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the best parts of the movie. I would say, Schweiger. I think that there's a big Tarantino influence here in a lot of what we're talking about, in terms of chronology and editing and like these breakaways and stuff. I do kind of wonder, if Tarantino and Danny Boyle hadn't come along before, what would this movie look like?
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of reminded me a lot of that old movie Alfie, old English movie that was kind of doing that back then, and it was, there's some cinema rété in there, but I'm watching it and I'm thinking of a couple more movies and I'm kicking myself because these are two movies I'll watch countlessly, and yet I'd never seen SLC Punk. So it reminds me a little bit of Swingers, but to me, this makes Swingers look like just this fleeting in joke without much substance at all. SLC Punk has so much content in it, and it's not really it's not exhausting. Like, remember Life Less Ordinary? They were throwing all this stuff at us like a kitchen sink movie, and yet 25 minutes in, you're fucking exhausted.
Yeah.
This throws everything at you, and yet it flies by and is super entertaining. And the central lesson for me, sorry, I'm a little fired up. It reminds me a little bit about something like Ferris Bueller. Like a movie like Ferris Bueller, central lesson, in my opinion, is to like live in the moment, because tomorrow, like, you have to grow up and accept the change. But a movie like this, it dramatizes circumstantial like evolution in terms of growth in a coming of age story in a way I'm not used to seeing done so well. I think that's why I loved it, because it's such a natural evolution for him to arrive at this conclusion, even in his original state. Fucking loved it.
I do think that so I mean, when it comes to the style of the film, I'm 100% with you. When it comes to the content of a lot of the speeches that he's making, like a lot of pontificating about posers, which feels just extremely juvenile, extremely. A lot of
Eighth
like
grade.
yeah, like 8th grade, like not even like aren't you supposed to be like graduated? Like so a lot of that a lot of talk of anarchy without seeming to have a real firm understanding of what it means, and then like bullying people for like liking Sex Pistols, and like they're singing anarchy in the UK, but that's not okay, but anarchy in the USA is okay. Like there's like a lot of conflict here, which I guess is part of the point, but like
yeah, it's like see everybody who said they were a punk like in the 90s and early 2000s, they all did that.
And then his obsession with like with violence as a like I don't know, is some sort of like reason to be like to beat on the rednecks and then beat on the mods and all this stuff, like it all, I mean, like so when we talk, like there's clearly some philosophical struggles here, but they're just extremely asinine.
Yeah, and so was the fact that Devon Sawa having all that acid soak through his pants. That would not happen. That's not how that works, by the way.
That's not how that works. Also, if you're on acid, you're on acid. You aren't like.
I mean, I've never been on 100 hits of acid, but yeah, I would like to think I would know that still. So
yeah, never done 100 hits either. But I do really love that sequence though, when he's running across and you see the acid go through the pants and go through the skin, and you see the muscles and the bone. That's
really
cool filmmaking. I mean, like maybe not super motivated, but cool.
Yeah, it was like, they said Jeff Manierson took 50 hits of acid, and I was like, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. None of that shit ever works. People don't do shit like that. These are the type of urban myths that grow, though, but they play it as a reality, but I will give them credit for turning it into another philosophical discussion about poverty and what happens to him and what Steve-O feels when he runs into Sawa's character later on, Sean, and he feels... Yeah. And by the way, the side, again, another tangent about when they run into him, there's always a side it's almost like Family Guy. It's like a flashback every time there's a scene within a scene, and he tries to get a job at the mall selling women's clothes. And it's fucking funny. This movie is really funny. I want to give it a lot of credit. It's a funny movie. There's a lot of great lines. But it's also fucked up with that dichotomy. Steve-O he says he didn't like the way it made him feel to see his friend begging for money, so he turned his back and took acid with Sandy.
Well, he didn't like the way it felt to see that even someone like him could wind up on the streets. Maybe not him personally, because his rich parents would take care of him, but it's just another stepping stone towards this growth progression that I love. And it's done in a super funny and entertaining way.
Yeah, and I think he's bothered because like his parents would walk past him too, right? That's kind of like what eventually you get to that point where that is what you do. Like when you're a young teen, you might try and solve people's problems, but like as you get older, it becomes like, look, well, you made your choices, and he doesn't like that. That's not punk rock, and that's one of the things. That's one of the things I really wrestled with watching the movie this time. Like, what the fuck is punk rock? Because to me, punk rock means kind of like DIY. And independent spirit, but also,
it's also about community,
but also inclusive, which was what I was about to say. Like punk to me is extremely inclusive and communal. Like it's very much like we're in this together kind of thing. Is punk rock slamming someone's head against the wall because they bumped into you at a party? I don't think that's fucking punk rock, but this is 1985 punk rock in SLC, so maybe I don't know.
We would have called that aggro as fuck when we were in high school, pretending to like punk rock. Like, dude, that was fucking aggro, bro.
Yeah, that was. There's moments where I'm like, I don't like these people. They're not nice or good people.
Yeah, looking for pain.
No, I don't actually. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like these people are like 18 years old, and when you're 18 and struggling with like identity in the middle of nowhere, I think that it's real easy to like try and like find identity in suffering.
But there's a mix there too. Like you said, these guys graduated college. They're at least 22. At least Steve-O and Heroin Bob.
Steve-O and Heroin Bob are supposed to be like 22.
Yeah, and but there's a mixture, like, you know, that girl who gets off her meds, the sister of that Chris guy who we're introduced to, she's 17. And even Brandy, when she's introduced, has the love of Steve-O's life later on all of a sudden, which is like a weird wrap up to the movie a little bit for me. But like it has to, I don't know, he's all melancholy as fuck. And then he meets Brandy, who is the impetus for that is from Trish, by the way, who Trish's character to me is so classic. Everybody knows there's a girl that everybody's into. She rules the scene.
Yeah.
To me, that was so... I can think of
Very
a
genuine.
couple women I really met in real life that we probably all know back in the day. Like, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And
But-
God, Annabeth Gish is gorgeous still. I loved her in Midnight Mass. She still looks fantastic. And always just such an underrated actor. I think that she's so quality in everything that she does. She just brings this real ethereal and like glow to her. I just every performance. I think she's just fucking fantastic.
Absolutely.
She's great in this. And her performance is, you know, it's so simple and classy, but it's well done, and everyone looks to her, and the way Bob worships her, and the growth that he goes through, and suddenly Steve gets pissed because now he's a poser for falling in love, which is a fucking great, ridiculous debate that two people who are moody would have anyways. You gotta think, both these guys are moody as fuck. They live together. They stare at a television with a bullet hole of Ronald Reagan through his head. That is not a real television at all. They don't have heat. Even though Steve-O comes from a tremendous amount of wealth, they can afford a really nice place and have all the amenities they want.
I think the only furniture they have is a lawn chair.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I like that. The fact I think there's a moodier period. This is a moodier period of your life too. And the movie does a good job of having these characters be all over the place. They really are. Bob he breaks a mirror and he feels really bad when Trish comes. I'm sorry. I feel, you know, this is what happens. And I am really impressed still to this day by the way the movie gives the impression of the challenges, but sometimes the simple nature of these people all at once.
I totally agree, Mike. I was sitting there wondering why. I know it's semi-autobiographical, but I mean, clearly the 80s was like coke and excess and big business. But other than that, like, why do you think it was set in 85? I think it could have done a lot of good as being a like 90s, maybe as well. I think it works in the mid 80s, but do you think there's a real strong point that he set, that the director and writer set it in that period?
Yeah, because the narrative, some of the debates are about the early stages of punk rock. And I think that's what he wanted to focus on for some reason.
For some reason, like, does anyone seriously? I mean, the Sex Pistols very famously were Ramones fans. So is this a real argument anyone's having? I didn't get that. And that's not
really like a trendy argument to have. Yeah.
And to me, what it spoke to was that, like, to answer your question, in my estimation, is that's what he knew. So like that's what he recorded. Like that was the scene that he knew. He didn't know the 80s. He didn't know like the mid 90s punk scene. He wasn't going to film a bunch of Lagwagon shows. He would have been cool. But
Disco Punk was foreign to him by then. He's 30 when he did this, right? Is that what you said, Eric?
Something like
that. Right around there.
So we went with what he knew. Is what I'm guessing.
He's born in the late 60s. He came of age when Steve-O and these guys came of age. So this is his story. That makes sense.
I mean, I don't know that much about punk, but in 85, isn't that when punk started to get like a little bit like commercialized and a little bit neutered? I mean,
it already had been. If it's this is the thing about, see, it's so funny that we have to discuss this, and I always loathe these conversations. You have this mainstream punk, like he talks about at the beginning, right, Travis? Like the Ramones and the Sex Pistols, and then you get like into the period where you have maybe more authentic punk, like the Dead Kennedys and Minor Threat, and the real stuff, right? Like the underground,
Generation X makes an appearance. Right?
Yeah, like there's several different realms of it that cause the confusion in the discussion, in my opinion. And when they laid out the order of the people that get beat down on, and the new wave people are very dead last, and they were called the hippies, I laughed when I saw that, even though I didn't really like that segment of the movie. But but new wave had a lot of punk influences. So it shows you how little the guy who's telling you the story maybe really knows about any of this shit.
Well, and that's partly what like frustrated me, not like with the movie, but maybe with who I was at that age, which is like this confused sense of tribalism, as if there's these vast differences between you and your neighbors. Like, you don't like bad religion, so you must suck as a person. Like, what the fuck kind of logic is that? You know, like, it doesn't make any sense. But that's
those things happened.
But that's the kind of shit I thought in my teens. I'm not happy to admit now. So I think that some of the movie, like, because for me the movie's a hot blast of nostalgia, but some of it is like, ugh, I remember being like that.
Yeah, there was even in our time in the 90s the ska coming into the punk rounds. There was even debates about that, like, whoa, dude, don't, you know.
There's a lot of ska in this movie. Like, it starts with Too Hot by the Specials. I'm like, fuck yeah. Cool. Yeah. I didn't remember so much ska being in the movie, but there's actually
there's a lot of this music that's like punk, supposed punk, that I wasn't familiar with. That I really love the soundtrack, and I learned a lot about bands I didn't know about. I mean, some of them I knew. The Dead Kennedys closed the film, and there's a Minor Threat in there at the end. But there's a lot of them. These songs I didn't know, like I Love Living in the City. I love that song. I never heard that song until I saw this movie.
Dude. And I really find it interesting that the film before the Dead Kennedys, which is over the credits, it wraps up the Roxy music.
Yeah,
I love Roxy music, and that's not really punk. I think that's supposed to represent like his step forward. Like he's gonna become a Roxy music fan, which I thought that was cool.
Yeah, and that song Mother of Pearl especially, he talks about how we often pantomime our emotions, and that's exactly what Steve-O is doing. He's just acting like he's in a costume. And he's on the verge of coming out of his costume and becoming his own person. Great track.
Like when he gets called out by Summer Phoenix at the end, who mildly likes him.
Mildly. It is her party, and she'll cry if she wants to.
She's like, am I offending you, you piece of fucking shit?
Well, a comment from Randy Rhodes here says, yes, finally a film I've seen. This is even better, though. The second comment. Best line. Thank you, fool.
Actually, that is a good line, but the only line I liked better was just, there's a movie on there. I love that.
I was saving Sink You Fool for the very end of the show. Thank you.
Oh, there it is. Hey, is there more? Much more. All right. Yeah, the guy who shows off his shit.
I will gladly show you now.
7 different versions on this shower head. Yeah, so lame. We've all been there. Everybody. This is not punk or anything. Some guy showing his shit off, like, oh god, we got to go through this tour. This is hell. So
to get the thing that you want, which is probably marijuana.
Exactly. That's right. Yeah, he's the guy who's got the stuff. So that's true.
Oh my god.
What else, gentlemen? I mean, I could talk about this movie all day, so I don't want to hog the spotlight here. But there's so many. This movie does have a lot of philosophical discussions in it that I think are worthy of our time.
Like what else? What other philosophical discussions? Because all right, it's like order or anarchy, and I love it. People think like he's like talking about nature being order. I'm like, I don't know if that's quite the case, but whatever. So it's order versus anarchy, and it's like adulthood versus rebellion, and then it's like who started punk, sort of. What other kind of philosophical arguments are there? In
the being surrounded. Well, you got a ton of religious oppression creates this.
Okay, yeah,
the state. This is the people who are the toughest and the most rebellious are the people who are most oppressed by a direct religious oppression, which was an interesting discussion that actually didn't get fleshed out much in the film beyond that point that he makes when he talks about the extreme corporal punishment band example.
Yeah, there's plenty of opportunities that they flirt with, but perhaps because of the time, they don't get too much into like racial profiling or homophobia. Or even with Mark, like foreign influence. I mean, he's an immigrant coming here from another country, and he's expected to act a certain way. But like, there's all these little things about how like life is pain, and like you have a license to kill because man's inherited dispositional veracity is truth, and a lot of it's bullshit. But I was saying this Nietzschean bullshit like when I was 22, so I think that's part of the point.
When they go over to Wyoming,
what the hell are you?
Which I really, I've always detested that scene, actually, or like that, not the whole scene, but that just that little bit where like the old man and the old woman seemingly don't know. Like that's fucking ridiculous. That's ridiculous. No one's gonna think you came from a mental hospital because you have a fucking mohawk. It's stupid. And then like they turn the corner and there's two hillbillies that don't give a flying fuck and hardly look at them sideways. Like, what's going on here?
That's true.
But they do explore some like religious stuff there. And then the fucking guy calls Nazis a gathering of people.
Yep.
Like very fine people on both sides. And like Bob is ready to fucking lose it. Like, so you do get some tantalizing stuff there. In the car ride, you have Mike, what's his name? Not Mike, but
Eddie.
Eddie is talking about how he's often mistaken for a homosexual.
Right.
That doesn't bother him at all because he likes homosexuals. He just doesn't like people fucking with them. Then of course they throw in some slurs because it's 1998.
Yeah.
There is some stuff. You are right, Eric. There's only so many minutes in the movie. Like we're not going to turn this into like a thesis. So yeah, I mean they definitely do kind of flirt with some pretty interesting stuff.
I dig the way they do it. It's kind of like, I mean, it's kind of like not liner notes version of like theology and philosophy and all that. And I think it works for a punk film like this. The whole brevity of the film, like any good punk song worth its salt, it's like 2 minutes tops. And I love that this is like 90 minutes in and out, and yet it gives you so much.
Yeah, that's a really fair point. And then this fascism is constantly challenged with the police and the overall fascist state of things as they see it in the 80s.
Which he joins.
Which he ends up joining. Yes, you're right.
Right, because you could do more damage from inside that system than from without, right?
Yeah, there's so many final ironies in the end, right? Supposedly.
No future in anarchy, I believe he says.
Oh, we haven't discussed so Bob dying.
Oh,
you know, you never saw this movie, so I'd be curious. How did you feel as a first-time viewer when that actually goes down? Did you see it coming, or
I was blown away? That's why I think I said out loud, "Fuck swingers," because like these movies that I'm used to that try to be these like dudes palling around dealing with real shit, they didn't have any fucking balls when you look at a lot of them. Maybe Basketball Diaries. But when this happens, I'm out of control on my couch right over there. Even the camera is a little bit out of focus on Matthew Lillard, as if we're intruding on something. It's fucking gorgeous.
I got the feeling that was the best take, and they just accepted the fact that it was a little blurry. But
oh man, I loved it.
Lillard's performance there, that holds up really well. That has always really impressed me. I wasn't I wasn't ready for this, and the drool and all that shit. Like, very, very heartbreaking to watch and deal with that.
It's
much better than Bradley Cooper's crying.
I mean, when we go through life, I mean, the things that really change us are things we're just not ready for, and we're not prepared for, don't know how to react to. This sells that in a way I did not expect in that first 5 minutes. So
Sorry.
Awesome.
I do think it was tied up a little neatly though, because Bob dies and like him and his girlfriend, and like his best friend's girlfriend are like, let's get haircuts. I'm like, okay, we get haircuts, and then we go to the funeral, and it's like, okay, I'm in love now, and I'm going to be a lawyer. Bingo, bango, and a movie. Like that's
what I said earlier. I agree.
It's tied up a little too neatly, and I don't know about you guys, and this is maybe nitpicking a little bit, but like for me, if I met the love of my life, like the most amazing connection I ever had with a stranger in one night, and that also happened to be the night that my best friend died, poison the well, man. It's all over. Like there's no way I'm going to be able to like engage in a relationship with you. I'm going to be a fucking mess, and you're going to not really have a good time trying to put me back together.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. But he's
terrible minimization there.
Yeah.
He's met someone that finally, I don't know if I would say understand him, but is willing to kind of see through this veneer. So maybe he feels close to her, and that he can open up to her and live through this with someone finally, as opposed to just having to pretend.
Yeah, they do a good job.
See the performance though. But he just, as you described, Travis, you see the performance he gives, and he's devastated. This is his best friend.
Yeah.
So if it should fuck him up tremendously, not be like, well, this was the end of the movie, so I should accept this.
Bob would want me to, practice law in Idaho.
Right. If anything, yeah, exactly. If anything, there would be more of a at least temporarily, and they skip over it entirely. There's a whole segment there of emotional distress and dysfunction that could go on for months, and there's like 20 minutes of a movie that I wouldn't have mind maybe 15 seeing. We're only an hour and a half, hour 40 minutes.
It's
max
an hour
on this
37.
movie, so. Yeah. So I think there's something there.
And also, they had a huge fight that they didn't really resolve. They went to the party together, but they didn't resolve it. And as someone who has lost people when you're in a fight with them, I can tell you that fucking haunts you for a long time. It's just so that's something that's, on one hand, I think they do a great job of showing like a very raw reaction from Lillard when he sees him, but on the other hand, I think they kind of hit fast forward at the end.
Well, how long was that when we get the changed Steve-O? What's the timeline?
I mean, it's literally at the funeral that he shows up with a shaved head, and he's in a suit,
right.
And then he sits down outside the funeral and does like the wink and nod, like, hey, at the end, like from the bench, and that's the end of the film.
That's true.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Okay, give you that one.
I
mean, if you're gonna have a 10-minute long monologue from Til Schweiger and then only spend 2 minutes on this wrap up, it's a little tricky.
Yeah, I agree.
Hey, it's Dogfest here on the 79 Podcast. Hey, Scruffy, how you doing?
I woke him up.
Yes, it's a missed opportunity. I really feel like it is, but it's not. It doesn't ruin the movie. It's just something to consider. We're talking about the movie, we're breaking it down. We got to give it its due and say, hey, you missed an opportunity for you to kind of flesh out your feelings. Because I would assume, unless he wrote this, I really feel like maybe he did lose someone and he would understand the situation. Maybe it was a side story. Maybe he got this from someone who knew someone. I don't know. Maybe it just made sense, or he thought it was like in the script, it would be really cool to have someone named Heroin Bob die from their first experience with a drug. I don't know.
That's another thing that bothers me. Like, you are someone that won't even take Advil. You don't take any pills your whole life until you get a headache. Yeah, and then you get a headache and you take a fistful of pills that you don't even know who they are, like what they are. I found like that was like I know he's drunk, but like being drunk doesn't just undo who you are. If you're someone who's phobic about pills, you're probably not even good at swallowing pills. I've known quite a few phobic pill people, and they can hork down a fucking enchilada in one bite, but like they try and swallow like an aspirin, and they just struggle with it. So like, I mean, I don't know. That was something else. I'm like, doesn't seem in like keeping with the character.
Well, he's making terrible faces in that scene, at least, to try to give you the impression that he's not happy about any of it.
After the reaction that his father gave him, I think they could have added a little more padding in there that said he feels differently about his own choices. So maybe he's saying, hey, fuck it, I'll take these. Like, what does it matter anyway? I'm going to end up like my father. Something like that could have helped.
Well, I think they actually kind of were doing that, but in the other direction, because you do get the sense that, like, he's starting to look at SLC like it's home. He's falling in love. He's growing up before even Steve-O is. So maybe part of him is like, people take Advil. That's fine. That's a normal thing to do. So, I mean, but they didn't really, so maybe if they showed like a moment of him taking an aspirin before, I don't know. Again, maybe I'm being a little nitpicky, but it just seemed a little out of keeping with his character.
Sure.
Yeah. Wow. Well, we've covered a shitload of ground on this film, and anything else? Last call here. Last call for alcohol.
I'm a fucking beggar, man. It fucking sucks.
Yeah. Cool, man.
Do you wear a shirt that says "fuck you" to a job interview?
Well, that's Absolutely. Kind of the point, right? Like the dude's got issues.
Yeah, how bad was that bald cap? This is like next level.
Yeah, there you go.
USA trash.
Yes. Always bothered me. It's just the biggest mohawk of all time that can't be supported even by an endless amount of hairspray, because it's a bald cap that is fraudulent. You're right about that. But I love everything they say in that scene. His response to them and everything that they talk about is fucking great. I would just love more of that. I love this generational divide and the controversies, the hypocritical nature of so many actions. That's what I dig about it.
Did you guys notice that we've actually seen the girl that plays Sandy? We've seen her before on the Cinema 9 podcast.
Jennifer Lean? She played Davina Vineyard in American History X.
Okay.
Oh,
Davina. You're right.
She hasn't done a ton of stuff, honestly, but like, that's her second appearance on the show. So thank you, Jennifer Lean.
That's so odd you bring that up, because that's a movie I was thinking about almost the entire time I'm watching this too. And it also comes out in 1998. And my biggest issue with that movie is that it spends so much time kind of indoctrinating you into Derek's philosophy before finally it's like, oh yeah, I was wrong. And this one kind of does the same thing. It kind of gets you into this anti-establishment punk stuff, and then only to say like, yeah, I'm a fucking poser. Don't listen to me. I'm full of shit. the parallel's interesting, especially when it's punks versus Nazis. And what the fuck is a mod anyway?
That's from the Mod Squad.
Modern music, like fans of modern music, they would dress up like that and they would listen to like English beat, I guess, and like drive around.
The Mod Squad, the TV show, they look like that.
I honestly don't think it has any, I don't know if it has anything to do with that whatsoever, but I know that they rode around on mopeds, like that was like a scene thing. The Mod Squad could be. I mean, I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying I don't know if it is or not.
Wow. Okay, fair enough. I'll give you that. I never seen the Mod Squad in real time, so who am I to say?
Yeah, I'm not
all
sure.
I know is
but
these are differing people.
Mods before, you don't really hear much about them these days. But
they're all people wearing different uniforms, but they're going through the same shit. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, they're all, really all the same. In a lot
exactly. Of ways. So, all right.
Well, should we make the rounds, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, Eric already revealed his thoughts. Should we just let him have it?
Yeah, go for it, Eric.
Couldn't take my eyes off the screen. The script is so like sharp and brash and alive. And to portray Punk, it's like, how do you portray Punk? Like, how do you show it in like a visual? Like, it's pretty much just like spitting and screaming and swinging and swearing. And he does all that. Like, he films these mosh pits like fucking Terry Malick. Like, I loved all that. The direction is not lazy. It's like a fun participant in these proceedings. Adds so much. Some of these diatribes are a little lame, but this is 85, man. Like back then, and even when we were growing up, all we had was music and books and film to help us form these opinions. And nowadays we've got this like nonstop mainstream opinion and information, even misinformation. So I love everything that's going on here because it lets you think and you have an experience. I fucking loved it. I cannot wait to see it again.
Okay. Travis, let's go to you next. I'm curious. I don't know where you're at on this one.
Well, like I said, this is one that I very much internalized and watched a ton when it came out. And, and a lot of, and it's funny that you mentioned that we hadn't talked about it much, Mike, because I feel like this is like, there are some movies that are like, these are our movies. And there's some movies that feel like they're your movies. You know what I mean? This is one of those movies that felt like mine. In a way, like I didn't really, like I know that there's some people I talked to who liked it as well, but it was like it was a cult classic, but it wasn't like one that everybody was on board with. And again, it wasn't. I think that was partly because not everybody was like punk rock, so I think that a lot of people that had early appreciation for the film were coming from a punk rock background, like us. So I think that that's a big part of like why I was really into it, and I'm happy to have rewatched it because I hadn't seen it in a long time. And I wanted to like get a good sense of how I feel about it now. And now, Eric, you were saying you thought of a few other things like American History X. For me, there's something that kept on going through my head. It wasn't the movie; it was the book, A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess.
Yeah.
I thought quite a bit about this movie, especially that last chapter that didn't make it into the Kubrick version, where he just kind of like hangs up his spurs and is like, I'm a grown ass man now. Who am I fucking kidding? So in a lot of ways, I think this movie owes a lot to that book. I think that there's literal. I think it's heavily inspired by it. I really do. I'd be surprised to learn that he wasn't a fan. But it also, maybe I'm reaching here because maybe these are like pretty universal themes and ideas that fucking Homer probably
great comparison
writing about. Thanks. But I think one of the main things of this movie that it's telling you is that the time comes to put childish things away. And ironically, for me, this is one of those movies that feels like something that was a little childish that I've put away. I've kind of outgrown the film. I think it meant a lot to me when I watched it as a kid. It was fun to go back and watch it last night, and I would never sit here and say that's not a good movie. I would never sit here and be like, there's no value to this movie. This movie sucks. I would never say that. I do think that this movie has it's worth seeing. I think it's a good movie. But for me, it didn't really hold up as something that I needed to come back and rewatch. And I don't think I'm going to come back and rewatch it again anytime soon.
Okay. Well, it was leaning one way, and then all of a sudden, boom, there it is. The reality strikes. High drama from Travis. I watched the movie. I watch it all the time. It's just something I throw on, and it gets less enjoyable for me. I will say that it's never quite as good as it was I mean, when Heroin Bob dies, it's just like, whatever. Okay, he's dead now to me. I'm kind of dead from it because I've seen it too many times, which is not an indictment of the film. It's just me. I've seen it too much.
I think that's partly my problem still.
Yeah, and that's fair. But the debates, the discussions that go on, and the internal strife within this film, whether it's from one era or not, doesn't matter to me. Being young is about being ignorant and naive to the same standard routines that most people go through, at least in this culture, in this society. This is a general way of growing up and trying to shake off the things that you like, but maybe they're not good for you, or maybe that you think you want to be a part of, but then you realize, maybe even later you realize, oh, I didn't want to be a part of that at all, but I didn't have the, it's about finding courage within yourself to stand up for the things that you really want to focus on. And, peer pressure is an issue, and there's a lot of great peer pressure in this movie, even though it's not done in the classic way, in my opinion, of how it can be shown. Like, oh, peer pressure, here it is in your face, I'm shoving it down your throat. It's not like that all the time. It's a slow burn sometimes, and you feel it without even recognizing it in the moment. It might be after the fact. So it's a good. It's fun. It makes me laugh. It's really funny to me. So the fact that I still laugh, and as long as Till Schweiger's still in it, I'm gonna laugh. So it's gonna hold up for me, and that's just how it is. But I could see the points that are all made here are really well done, and I'm glad that it spurred some of the discussion that it did. I really didn't know what to think by choosing it, so I'm glad I chose the movie, and I'm glad that you got to put it to bed too, Travis. So
yeah, I think it was a good choice for the show. I really do.
All right. Well, that's all you can ask for in these times, and I'm still stunned that Eric loved it, but I'm really glad you did, man. That's great news. So
I was fully prepared. I thought Eric was going to fucking hate it.
I was fully prepared to hate it.
Shocker. One of those shocking developments.
You were fully prepared to hate it. That doesn't sound like you.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
not at
like,
all.
oh, Shaggy in a movie about punks? This is going to fucking suck.
Well, hey, we'll talk more about it in 2 weeks. I'd like to get some more thoughts. Either way, next week's show, we're back to basics, right? Back to the beginning?
Back to me, yeah.
Back to Travis Roy.
Back to me. So I get the selection of this for the next episode. Now, next episode will come out on the 28th. That makes it very close.
Oh, boy.
To Halloween.
Not gonna let us down.
Mike, while you were gone, obviously we wanted to do a horror film, and we ended up doing Blood Diner, which was fun, but I'd never seen Blood Diner before. I didn't have any nostalgia for Blood Diner. I'd like to do a horror movie that I know and that I have feelings about. And I had actually said recently on this show that I would never choose this film because I know how I felt about it. But I think that given the fact that it's fucking Halloween and I want to pick a movie that I like, and it's actually been a few years since I watched it, so maybe my feelings will have changed.
Here it comes.
And it gives us a chance to do a director that we haven't done yet, Mr. Frank Darabont. Right. I'm talking about 2007's The Mist. We're doing The Mist. Very excited.
Mist.
Is that based on the video game?
No, that's just Mist, M-Y-S-T. The Mist is based on the Stephen King novella.
M-I-S-T.
Right, Mike. Yep.
M-I-S-T. You've never seen it, have you, Mike?
Nope.
No.
Why are you going to sit down?
I will.
Fast forward button ready.
In the 90s on CD-ROM, Myst was a force. Everybody played that game. It was a big deal.
Yeah, It was a big deal to like sit in your room and like not be able to finish a game because you were just confused and staring at the same screen for 45 minutes.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Yeah. Squeaky, squeaky. Squeaky, squeaky.
All right, well, yeah. Squeaky. Yeah, a lot of squeaky toys here. A whole basket of squeaky toys.
You can put them in another room next time.
All right. Well, there it is. Another edition of the Cinema 9 Pod is in the can. Thanks to all of you who participated. Thanks for your commentary. First-time viewers, Miles and Randy. Thank you. That's good stuff. Yeah. Next week we'll do Mist. The Mist? The Mist.
The Mist.
The Mist.
The Mist. Not Mist.
Right.
Okay. Next week we'll do The Mist live, and then the week after that, I don't know what we're doing. We're still got to talk about it and figure it out. But we're going to be on sabbatical, but we can still do the show and then record it and post it later. So we'll figure it out. Either way, whatever we do, we'll inform you. Cinema9pod at protonmail.com. 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Until that day, then, Travis Roy, Eric Brancher, Michael Govier.
Fuck you, dear.